The 80s was a great decade for music, but it wasn't short on tragedy either, and we lost some of the industry's greatest stars before the decade's end. It took AC/DC a while to catch on in the United States, but by the time they achieved their first smash success stateside, 1979's platinum-selling Highway to Hell, they had already conquered their native country of Australia. Key to AC/DC's rise was their incendiary live performances, which rocked crowds' faces off thanks to the guitar fireworks of brothers Malcolm and Angus Young, as well as the staggering commitment of the band's strutting, howling frontman, Ronald Belford Scott. Bon Scott was absolutely born for the stage, but his friends and family say that as AC/DC's fame ballooned, the pressure of being an international star got to him in a big way. In a documentary on Scott for Australian Story, the singer's brother, Derek, recounted how his feelings of isolation grew along with his fame.
He wanted to go home. He wanted to be with his family. Unfortunately, he went for the bottle instead.
Bruce Howe, a former housemate and friend of Scott's, described his attitude toward fame in heartbreaking terms.
He found his holy grail, but the holy grail, just might have just looked like an empty goblet.
After a particularly virulent drinking binge, Scott was found dead on February 19, 1980. AC/DC went on to even greater success with replacement singer Brian Johnson, but Scott's singular presence will always be missed by the band's fans. After departing the short-lived but influential English band The Yardbirds, Ace former session guitarist Jimmy Page was in need of a new project. Putting together an outfit he originally dubbed the New Yardbirds, he enlisted bassist John Paul Jones and singer Robert Plant. To complete the outfit, Page had his eye on a young drummer who had been putting in time with various bands on the local circuit, a hard-hitting, unconventional skins pounder by the name of John Bonham. The problem? Initially, Bonham was reluctant to leave behind his day job as a bricklayer. Bonham, of course, was eventually convinced to join the band that would become known as Led Zeppelin. As the 80s dawned, though, Bonham began to exhibit signs of fatigue, both mentally and physically. The stress of being in one of the world's biggest rock bands and the long stretches spent away from his family took a real toll, and the sheer physicality of his playing didn't help either. On September 25, 1980, after allegedly downing 40 shots of vodka during a 12-hour period, Bonham's body simply gave out. His death brought an abrupt end to one of the most influential bands of all time. There are few musical claims to fame more solid than former Beatle, and after the dissolution of his old band, John Lennon carved out a career befitting his reputation. Like the man himself, Lennon's solo output could be tender, confrontational, introspective, and reflective of the world at large, sometimes all at once. His famously turbulent personal life was always mirrored in his recordings, and after the 1975 birth of his second son, Sean, he didn't hesitate to walk away from music altogether, regardless of the fact that he was one of the world's most famous music icons. In 1980, after a 5-year hiatus, Lennon and his wife Yoko Ono dropped the double album Double Fantasy, a sterling comeback effort that contained the heartfelt, moving singles Just Like Starting Over and Woman, both tributes to Lennon's love for Ono. This comeback would prove to be bittersweet, however. Just 3 weeks after the album's release, on December 8, 1980, Lennon was shot to death by an assassin outside his apartment building in New York City.
When they went inside the gate, and then all of a sudden they heard 5-6 shots, and that was it.
In his final interview, conducted by radio hosts Dave Sholin and Lori Kay earlier that day, Lennon looked forward to the coming decade, saying, "Wasn't the 70s a drag, you know? Here we are. Well, let's try to make the 80s good, you know, because it's still up to us to make what we can of it." The name Bob Marley is practically synonymous with reggae music. He's the biggest star the genre has ever seen, firing off a string of over a dozen classic albums with his band The Wailers throughout the 70s and 80s. In short, Marley's influence is nothing short of towering. Not only did he nearly single-handedly turn reggae into a global force, but he also used his music to spread the message of his religion, Rastafari, far beyond the borders of his native Jamaica. In the mid to late 70s, Marley scored hits in the UK, where he played to sold-out arena crowds, and the US, where he was poised to undertake his first stateside tour in 1980. Unfortunately, the tour was cut short after only 4 dates when, while jogging in Central Park, Marley collapsed. A melanoma that had been discovered under a toenail in 1977 had grown into a cancer that spread to Marley's brain and throughout his body. Marley died in a Miami hospital on May 11, 1981, ending the career of a star who was on the cusp of conquering America. Karen Carpenter is well known as the crystal-voiced lead singer of the Carpenters. With her brother Richard, Carpenter conquered pop music in the 70s, scoring no fewer than a dozen top 10 singles in that decade. She is almost as well known for a much more tragic reason, her untimely passing on February 4, 1983, from a heart attack brought on by anorexia. Her death brought the issue of eating disorders into the public discourse in unprecedented fashion, which obviously was not what Carpenter would have preferred to be known for. But then, she didn't exactly care for being a lead singer either. If she had had her way, she would have gone down in music history for how she played the drums. And she should have, because she was one of the best there ever was. Carpenter's technique was peerless, no less of a drum master than Buddy Rich once referred to her as one of his favorite drummers. Only occasionally did Carpenter get to truly show off, however, as she did during a 1976 Carpenter's TV special, a dazzling clip that has endlessly made the rounds on YouTube. Speaking with Yahoo, legendary percussionist Sheila E. cited Carpenter as her first major influence, saying, "She played as if she learned how to play in a drum corps. Like, how could you not know that Karen Carpenter was an incredible drummer?" R&B legend Marvin Gaye's track record during the 60s and 70s was nothing short of unimpeachable. After raising his profile up to the clouds with hits such as How Sweet It Is to Be Loved by You, Ain't No Mountain High Enough, and You're All I Need to Get By, he lifted it into the stratosphere with two career-defining LPs, 1971's What's Going On and 1973's Let's Get It On.
In this life, I love music, and music is my love, it's all I know.
By the late 70s, however, a series of complications had combined to sideline Gaye, including a cocaine problem, a painful divorce, and a huge tax bill. After this, Gaye relocated to Europe for a time in the early 80s. A 1981 release, In Our Lifetime, went nowhere, but 1982 saw Gaye mounting a proper comeback with the LP Midnight Love and its massive hit single, Sexual Healing, which went to number 3 on the Billboard chart in 1983. Unfortunately, his comeback was tragically short-lived. On April 1st, 1984, Gaye got into an argument with his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., with whom he had always had a contentious relationship. During their fight, Gaye Sr. shot and killed his son. Gaye Sr. claimed self-defense in the shooting, and in November of that year, he was sentenced to 5 years probation following a voluntary manslaughter conviction. It's painful to imagine what late career contributions Gaye might have made to the world of music had he lived. Gaye Sr., meanwhile, died in 1998 at the age of 84. In the world of reggae, Bob Marley was in a class by himself. Almost. Sharing some of that rarefied, ganja smoke-filled air was Peter Tosh, a former member of Marley's Wailers, whose masterful guitar work, distinctive vocals, and talent for songwriting helped anchor the band in its early years. In 1971, Tosh began dabbling in solo projects on the side, and by the time the Wailers disbanded in 1975, he was ready to break out as a solo artist. In 1976, after signing with Columbia, Tosh dropped the LP Legalize It, the title track of which cracked the Billboard 200. He posted 5 more charting singles in the late 70s and early 80s, joining Marley in spreading the reggae gospel and championing social causes worldwide. Tosh's rising career and life came to a shocking end on September 11, 1987, when he was shot to death in his home by multiple gunmen during a botched robbery attempt. At the time of his death, Tosh was putting out his best work. His 7th solo LP, No Nuclear War, was released near simultaneously with his murder, and posthumously earned him his first and only Grammy Award for Best Reggae Recording. Heavy metal titans Metallica have gained more fame, notoriety, and cold hard cash than virtually any other band the genre has produced. And while their style became a touch more straightforward with the release of the Black Album, their first 4 LPs were masterclasses in ultra-aggressive, full-throttle, breakneck tempo thrash. Lead guitarist Kirk Hammett, vocalist and rhythm guitarist James Hetfield, and drummer Lars Ulrich were undeniably highly technically proficient. But Cliff Burton was a technical wizard in his own right, helping to push the band's sound forward by practically reinventing heavy metal bass. While on tour in Europe promoting their 3rd LP, Master of Puppets, tragedy struck the band when their tour bus hit a patch of black ice and flipped.
And the whole bus just started flipping over. Everybody else walked out, and it's just like, where's Cliff?
Burton, who in a game of chance had finagled his way into Hammett's bunk on the bus, was thrown from the vehicle and pinned underneath. He died at the scene. Metallica went on to become one of the biggest bands in the world, with replacement bassists Jason Newsted and Robert Trujillo, the latter of which holds the post to this day. But while both have unquestionably proved themselves, fans will always wonder what might have been. You'd think life might be difficult as the youngest sibling of 3 international superstars, but that was not outwardly apparent from the early career trajectory of Andy Gibb, the younger brother of Bee Gees' Barry, Maurice, and Robin Gibb. Andy carved himself out an enviable career in the disco era of the late 70s. With an assist from the songwriting talents of Barry, Andy became the only artist to have his first 3 singles shoot to #1 on the pop charts, a feat which has yet to be repeated. With his stunning good looks and genial personality, he also landed a gig as a television personality, co-hosting the musical variety show Solid Gold. Andy also appeared on Broadway in a production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. Behind the scenes of all this success, however, he was dealing with a serious cocaine addiction. Andy's drug problem caused his career to suffer, but after a stint in rehab in the mid-'80s, he was on the road to recovery. He then declared bankruptcy in 1987, but the following year, he signed a new record deal and was eyeing a professional comeback, one that, unfortunately, was not to be. On March 10, 1988, Andy Gibb died from a viral heart condition at an Oxford hospital at only 30 years old. Few singers in rock history have lent as distinctive a voice to their craft as Roy Orbison, whose career began with a series of Sun Records recordings in the 50s before really taking off in the 60s. Orbison's 3-octave range was otherworldly. He could go from a warm baritone to a crystalline falsetto, and this, combined with his formidable songwriting talent, made him not just a highly successful recording artist, but a major influence on the likes of Elvis Presley and the Beatles. Orbison's style fell out of favor in the late 60s and 70s, but in the 80s, an interesting thing happened. After the use of his tune In Dreams in David Lynch's Blue Velvet reignited public interest in Orbison, the rock legend joined George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, and Jeff Lynne in the supergroup The Traveling Wilburys. Their debut release, Traveling Wilburys Volume 1, went triple platinum behind the hit single Handle with Care. Then, in 1989, Orbison released the LP Mystery Girl, his first album of new material in a decade, which was received as one of his finest works. Unfortunately, it was a posthumous release. On December 6, 1988, Orbison had died at the age of 52 after suffering a heart attack, leaving the promise of his late career resurgence tragically unfulfilled.